Hello everybody, it is Sunday the 26th of April, and I want to talk about the Torah codes and about any spiritual text actually. I think any spiritual text. And that I believe now those texts are not supposed to work on a conscious level, but on a subconscious level, that they are full of subliminal messages. Now, people will tell you, like people like Doreen Dutan, to say if you read the Torah, you have to read it in Hebrew to get the real message of the text. And I actually think she's right. You have to read it in Hebrew. Whatever's in there is probably lost in translation. So if we talk about the Torah codes, and I want to bring this idea forward because we are becoming aware of these things. We're becoming aware of the Torah codes. We're becoming aware of what is in there. Yeah? And then we're interpreting what it is we're seeing. And I want to bring a different interpretation. I'm not saying mine is right. I'm just bringing another perspective to be discussed, yeah, so that you have more than one choice to think about. So, Torah codes, what it actually means is you have the written text, and it is basically like a word search, yeah? There are names and places hidden in the text, and you work it like a word search. And you can become aware of those names that are in there and the places. Especially now that we have computers. Apparently rabbis have been trying that for a long, long time. Just using pen and paper, so to speak. Trying to find the words in the word search. The computer can do it now a lot faster to find these things. So what is it we're actually looking at? Yeah, I want to go with the example of Yitzhak Rabin. The name was in there. Yeah, the name Yitzhak Rabin. The place of his assassination was there. Who assassinated him? The name of the assassin was there in the word search. Right. And then comes the interpretation, and that is somebody predicted the future. And my interpretation is no, they didn't predict the future, they created it. That is the sowing of seeds. And that this text is not, again, when the rabbis tried to find the words just with their conscious mind, they were looking at it from the wrong level. Because this is speaking to the subconscious. Yeah? So if those are subliminal messages, so what happened there? If the word is there, Yitzhak Rabin, in places. So Yitzhak Rabin was a highly religious man. So was an assassin actually. I've just looked that up. His name was Yigal Amir. He was a law student, but his father was Shlomo Amir. He was a scribe, held a post in supervising kosher slaughtering, and taught Shabbat lessons at the local synagogue. So I mean, you can be pretty sure that this guy Yigal Amir had his nose in the Torah from whatever age he could. And Yitzhak Rabin was the same, I would say. So if they read the Torah in Hebrew, the original text, yeah, and the conscious reads what the text is saying, but the subconscious might see the words in there. Not in awareness, but in the subconscious, they see the grid, they see the word search. It doesn't come to awareness. They're not conscious of it, but it's lodged in the subconscious. So So Yitzhak Rabin, does that speak to a specific person, or just a man with the name of Yitzhak Rabin? Again, there may have been many Yitzhak Rabins in Israel. Usually names repeat, and there are multiple people with the same name. But there may have been only one Yitzhak Rabin that was deep enough in the Torah to receive the subliminal message. Yeah? And here comes what subliminal actually means. And that is a message that operates below the threshold of consciousness. Below the threshold, of conscious awareness, influencing the mind without being directly noticed. Yeah? It's a stimulus. It is an influence that comes from the subconscious, and that may then direct the steps of a man of what he does in his life. Directs his choices. So if there was out of many, again, many were called, maybe only one received the message because he went deep enough so that it could enter into the subconscious. And that then would inform how he's building his life, the choices he makes. Yeah, Yitzhak Rabin, that is, grew up or was in a kibbutz. He was in the IDF. He took a path in politics. Again, was that something that was already directed by the Torah, by the message he got whenever that sunk in, that seed entered into his subconscious? Did that direct influence his choices? And then he became prime minister. He went into politics and he became prime minister until his death in 1995, when he was assassinated. Again, people had discovered the Torah codes at that time, and they had told him that that would happen, that he should not go to that meeting. And he said he would go anyway, if that is the will of God. If that is the will of God, because that was in the Torah. Again, I don't know if at any point, I don't think so, that at any point he was conscious of what he was doing. But I think the seed was planted. So, and I would say any occult magic, which is not magic, there is no magic. There's no coincidence. There's no chance. All of those words are words for a cause not recognized. Any event has got a cause. And if we don't recognize the cause, we call it chance or magic or whatever. There's no magic. But if you can work the cause on a subconscious level, without people being aware what it is they are doing. And I really think that is what the Torah codes are doing. It did not talk to one specific Yitzhak Rabin. I don't think it did. But somebody with that name that would see subconsciously his own name called, so to speak, out of the Torah. It could have been any Yitzhak Rabin. So the seed was planted and it started working in the man, and it directed its steps every bit as much as the assassin was, I believe, directed by what he subconsciously saw in the Torah. So then the text is not foreseeing a future, it is creating it. There's a message being planted that would create an outcome. There's a cause and an effect. And the effect in this world. So, and it is done, I think, in many different ways. And again, everybody's going around saying they're predicting the future. They're not predicting the future. They're creating it. Through the planting of seeds, and that is occult knowledge. And that is knowledge of the subconscious. I'm sure of that. As I said, I'm sure of that. I'm not saying it is the truth. I'm just saying consider it, if that might be what is working here. Matthew 13. Therefore speak I to them in parables. That's Jesus speaking. Therefore speak I to them in parables, because they see not, and hearing they hear not. Because, they seeing see not, and hearing hear not, neither do they understand. The sowing of seeds, the parable of the seed, the sower and the seed. Speak in parables. You have the parable, you have the conscious level of the story, but that story may contain a deeper meaning that speaks to the subconscious. And that is where the seed is planted, in the subconscious, not in the conscious story. And then you do not hear it, you do not see it, but it sinks into you and it will work something from inside of you. Not magic, but knowledge of, I don't know, on some level that is psychology, but I think it goes deeper, it goes into consciousness. And then another thing that it says in Matthew, and I talked about this before, and I really think this is absolutely important and something that Christians absolutely do not do, and they must. When it says, in that is 13, we're still in 13, verse 24. And another parable put he forth to them, saying, the kingdom of heaven is like unto a man which sowed good seeds in his field. Yeah? But while men slept, his enemy came and sowed tares amongst the wheat, and went away. But when the blade was sprung up and brought forth fruit, then appeared the tares also. So the servant of the householder came and said unto him, Sir, didst thou not sow good seed in thy field? From whence then has it tares? He said unto them, An enemy has done this. The servant said unto him, Wilt thou then that we go and gather them up? But he said, No, nay, lest whilst ye gather up the tares, ye root up also the wheat with them. Let both grow together until the harvest. And in the time of the harvest I will say to the reaper, Gather ye together first the tares, and bind them in bundles, to burn them, but gather the wheat into my barn. See, that is the thing that Christians absolutely do not do, and no pastor does it, and that is to separate the wheat from the tares. Where it was said from the beginning that in this book are wheat and tares, sown together, growing up together, that need to be separated. And pastors will go around saying, it's all the will of God, it's all great, it's all fantastic, it's all good. And that is not what the text says. It's not all good. Yeah? There's stuff in there in your... And here comes the thing. There's stuff in there in your subconscious. There's another thing I want to propose. And that is that in your subconscious there is no judgment. That your subconscious is purely the gatherer of facts. Facts that you have not consciously seen, but the subconscious has got the greater knowledge. It takes in far more than the conscious does. But those facts are in there without judgment, just facts. But for the knowledge to get from the subconscious to the conscious, it goes through a veil, and that is where the judgment is. Through the veil of judgment. And then again, ask yourself, what is creating the judgment? Cultural laws, religion definitely creates a veil of judgment. So when you have memories, again, that's in the subconscious, come up, and what I call the flaming arrows coming from the subconscious, something that really hurts. the hurt was not in the subconscious. It just has the facts, but there was a judgment of good and bad of what happened, and it goes through that veil into your conscious, and it either accuses you or it is a joyful memory. But whether that is a sound judgment, that's a different question. Yeah? You really should look at your own judgment and what produced that judgment and whether it is actually just. Yeah, again, when you say it is the will of God and then everything becomes good, that is not sound judgment. But that is again the veil. It is in the veil. It is the will of God, or it is in the mind of the Creator, and anything that happens is good. Well, then anything is possible, which creates lunacy in this world. And you come to a point of, let's say, what Jeffrey Epstein was supposed to have said. I now know what I am, and I'm fine with that. Why? Yeah, I'm a pedophile. I'm a predator. I'm causing hurt left, right, and center. But that's fine because that was in the mind of God or in the mind of the Creator, and I'm just doing His will. So there's no judgment there at all of good and bad. It's all good. I've heard another person say, honestly, talking about people killing children and saying the same loving awareness is looking out of the eyes of the murderer and the eyes of the child. I mean, by the time you come to that point, you're insane. Yes. Now, couple of things about this book, the Bible, especially the King James or any translation really. And I'm wondering if the message was lost in translation. That to get the real subliminal message that is in the parables, that is the sowing of seeds into the subconscious. And for that to happen, you would need to read it in Aramaic. I really think you do. Same as Doreen DeTant says, if you want to read the Torah, you need to read it in Hebrew. I think that is actually true, because the subliminal message has probably been lost in translation. And right now, I'm not sure whether that is a good thing or a bad thing. Maybe it was a good thing that it was lost. Because you're not sure what is in there. Your consciousness will not pick up on it. Your conscious knowing will not pick up on it. That is what it is designed to do. To go past the gatekeeper. To go past the conscious. So, and again, we're only talking about like texts like the Bible or the Torah. This knowledge is in this world. That is occult knowledge. And I tell you, they're working that on, they have been working that for a while, especially Hollywood. Especially Hollywood. Again, people can bring up clips of film on, oh, look what they said there years ago. They predicted the future. That was the sowing of a seed. They sowed the seed. With somebody, it went in deep, what they heard, and it worked on it, and it directed what they did next. They were influenced on a very deep level by what they heard, and then people went and created the outcome, being affected by that message. It was not predicting the future, it was trying to sow a seed that will create a future. People will create the future. People that have received the seed and it sprung up in them and it worked in them and it created, influenced what they were doing. So Hollywood is doing it. Things like Star Trek, again, on a picture level, yeah? I mean, I don't think Star Trek was as hidden as some of the Hollywood things, that are in the background for the subconscious to see, but not the conscious to see. I think Star Trek was more in the open, because that is quite easily seen. But still, it planted ideas. This whole alien thing started there, and that was a planting of a seed, where people would start to think about beyond this world, would start to think about other races. And if you look at the races in Star Trek, I mean, they are, again, archetypes, yeah? And they are actually parts of ourselves. Klingon is the warrior. Vulcan is the logic part. Ferengi is obviously material greed. To any kind of race that is in Star Trek, you can have you can put an aspect of yourself onto that and see yourself in it, or at least a part of yourself in it, and you see the interaction of the different parts with each other that is within yourself. But of course there were other things that were planted, the ideas of possibilities of technology. Again, did they foresee the future? I mean, okay, we don't have a replicator, and we can't beam ourselves anywhere at the moment. But other things came to fruition. The communication devices. Yeah, we've got them now. We've got our mobile phones. Stuff like that came to fruition. Again, seeding of a possibility. Did somebody look at that and say, wow, what if that were possible? How would this... Starting to ask the question, how is this possible? Again, that's a question that's in the Bible all the time. How would this be possible? And then it puts you on a path of asking the question and receiving the answers, until somebody came up with a mobile phone. Again, a seed sown not directly to one person, but like planted all over the place. Where would it sink in? Where would it produce a fruit? So it wasn't as hidden as some things in Hollywood. It was actually quite close to consciousness, what was done in Star Trek, but other things are extremely hidden. So, and this is might be again where we need to go into ourselves and do what Carl Jung said, make the unconscious conscious, and that is create a connection between the subconscious and the conscious. Problem is the veil. Problem is the judgment. As I said, I'm quite sure the subconscious only contains facts without any judgment. Knowledge without judgment. And then what do we do with that knowledge? And how do we judge that knowledge? As good or as bad? And then what created the judgment? What created the veil between the two? And yeah, actually even getting into your subconscious would be, because at the moment I think we're actually prevented. We are absolutely prevented. We are split in two, and we cannot reach our own knowledge, so to speak, because of the veil of judgment. We are afraid to go in there. We are actually terrified of what we might find, because we expect something bad, because we're being told we are sinful, because we're told we are full of darkness. Man is full of darkness. So we are actually afraid of going in there, afraid of ourselves. We are afraid of the other half of ourselves, which, again, if you say just look at it dispassionately, just look at the facts, because I think that is all that is there, facts. And then be your own judge of whether that was good or bad. Don't prejudge. Don't prejudge by the judgment you were given. But as I said, Carl Jung said that is making the unconscious conscious. And there's one last thing I want to say, and that is, I've heard people, and now I'm not judging them because I was there myself. And I was actually, when I heard them, I was more or less reminded of the place that I was at a while ago. And that is, if you look at your brain, and they're talking about the conscious and the subconscious, and then wondering whether it's this half of the brain or that half of the brain, where is it actually? And the thing is, your conscious or subconscious, is not in the brain. Yeah? This body is a depiction of a higher truth. Neither your subconscious nor your conscious is actually in the brain. Yeah? The brain is just a depiction of the higher truth. Now, in the depiction, you can see that when you have the brain as a seed of as a seed of knowledge, the other seeds of knowledge, but as a seed of knowledge, you can see that it is split into two places. And that is the depiction of a higher truth, but the higher truth is not actually in the brain. So forget about which half of the brain is the conscious and the subconscious. They're not in there. I mean, they've taken the brain out. They've bodily thinking. It's not in there. This is just a depiction of the truth. The truth is beyond that. Yes, I think I want to leave it at that for today. And yes, I really think we must become aware of subliminal messages, of the sowing of seeds as it is said in the Bible. Messages that do not speak to your conscious, but that are designed, absolutely designed, to bypass the conscious, which is your gatekeeper, and sink in unseen. And then they start influencing. Then they start stimulating. Then they start directing your steps without you being aware where it's coming from. And it's only if we can see the subconscious and what is actually in there that we can see the source of our own actions. And those that work occult knowledge, those that work magic, can create parables, word searches. Hollywood put depictions into the background that the subconscious will pick up. They create subconscious messages. That is the magic. And it's not magic, that is knowledge. That is knowledge of how to do that. That is occult knowledge, that they work on the unconscious. Those that are only in awareness, conscious awareness. As I said, it's not magic. It is a course, an unseen course, a course not recognized, and we need to start recognizing those messages. See, I mean, they may have sunk into ourselves already. They might be in the subconscious, and there's no big problem with it as long as we know they're there. And then again, we can be the judge whether we can act on them or don't. But as long as they are there, without us knowing it, and a veil of judgment is there that we have not created, then these messages will direct the affairs of man from within. Right. Anyway, I definitely leave it at this for today. Tell me what you think. As I said, this is only one possibility, a different interpretation from they are predicting the future. You know, what do you think about the other possibility? Let me know. I'll talk to you again soon. Bye.